John Carter is a unique character in the realm of science fiction, famously known as the protagonist of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom tales. A Civil War veteran from the USA, he is mysteriously transported to Mars, referred to by its inhabitants as Barsoom, where he becomes a warrior battling mythical creatures, alien armies, and nefarious foes. However, the essence of this character lies not just in his adventures, but in his complex and profound internal conflict. John Carter can easily be considered one of the most underrated heroes in science fiction, with potential that merits him a spot alongside the most popular characters in fantasy and sci-fi. He has not garnered the recognition he truly deserves, which I find unjust. Carter, standing at about 6 foot 2 inches, had closely cropped black hair and gray steel eyes. Burroughs described him as immortal, implying that Carter was more than just a human from the start. His life before arriving on Barsoom remains largely a mystery, even to himself. As far as he knew, he was perpetually around 30 years old and had no memory of his childhood. Always a warrior with a strong sense of duty, this perhaps explains the honors bestowed upon him by 3 republics, as well as the accolades and friendship from an old powerful emperor and several lesser kings, in whose service his sword was often bloodied. His character and manners were a reflection of the ideals of the antebellum South. As a Virginian, he served as a captain during the Civil War for the Confederacy. After the war, Carter and his comrade, Powell, also a former captain, became gold prospectors. Carter and Powell struck it rich by finding gold in Arizona. Hiding from the Apaches in a cave, he apparently died. However, leaving his lifeless body behind, he mysteriously transferred as an astral projection to Mars, where he found himself reincarnated in a form identical to his earthly one. Accustomed to Earth's higher gravity, he discovered he was much stronger and more agile than the inhabitants of Mars. John Carter, a Civil War veteran, never anticipated that his destiny would take him beyond Earth to the mysterious Barsoom, Mars. His journey marked the beginning of a personal epic and a window into a fascinating world filled with peculiarities, splendor, and dangers. The story begins with a mythical transportation. While in the Arizona desert, Carter is unexpectedly transported to Barsoom through an unknown mechanism. In Edgar Rice Burroughs' original work, this process remains unexplained, but several theories can be considered. Astral projection. John Carter transfers his essence or soul to Barsoom, leaving his body on Earth. This emphasizes the mystical undertone of the story. Quantum leap. Modern interpretations might offer a scientific explanation, a space-time portal linking the planets. This mystery turns Carter's journey into an endless subject for speculation. Barsoom is not just an alternative version of Mars. It is an ecosystem crafted from scratch by Burroughs that impresses with its detail. Barsoom is a dying world. Life is sustained by an artificial air production system controlled by a central station. Any threat to this process poses a risk of extinction to the entire world. The planet is covered with deserts and sparse green areas, creating a fierce struggle for resources. This ecosystem gives Barsoom a distinct identity unlike any other fantasy world. One of the key features of Barsoom is its low gravity, which transforms John Carter from an ordinary human into a true superhuman. The gravity on Barsoom is about 1/3 of Earth's, making Carter much stronger and more resilient than the local inhabitants. Shortly after his arrival, John was captured by the Tarks, who were immensely impressed by his abilities. The Green Martian, Tarks, were one of the most unique and intimidating races on Barsoom. They embodied cruelty, barbarism, and the struggle for survival, and their first encounter with John Carter proved to be a true test for the hero. The Tarks were towering humanoid creatures distinguished by their physical and cultural traits. They had 4 arms, 6 limbs, and green skin. A terrifying and imposing appearance. They roamed Barsoom, living in ruined cities and desert lands. Their society was built on principles of strength and ruthlessness. Morals and emotions familiar to humans were almost unknown to them. When John Carter first encountered the Green Martians, he was captured and stripped of any rights. However, his unusual abilities and demeanor immediately set him apart from other captives. But earning the Tharks' respect was not something that could be achieved by mere physical power alone. John Carter managed this through a deep understanding of their culture and an ability to adapt. Although Carter himself was a captive, he earned respect through his actions. He saved a Thark child, despite their minimal concern for offspring. This act won admiration, even from the cynical Martians. His humanity, though alien to the Tharks, became his strength. A key figure in earning the Tharks' respect was Tars Tarkas, the tribe's leader. Tarkas became a kind of counterpart to Carter. He was a mighty warrior, but inside him lay a kindness rare among his people. He saw something more in Carter than just a captive, and began to respect him for his bravery and principles. Over time, their alliance turned into a friendship that not only changed Carter's fate, but also part of Barsoom's history. Gradually, John Carter inspired the Tharks with new ideas, which slowly softened their harsh customs. Influenced by Carter and Tars Tarkas, Thark society began to value strategy and cooperation more than mere physical strength. The beginnings of an understanding of the value of alliances and peace emerged. The story of John Carter's interaction with the Green Martians is an example of how courage, respect for foreign cultures, and moral resilience can overcome even the most insurmountable barriers. He managed not only to survive among fierce warriors, but also to become part of their world, changing their perspectives and inspiring a better future. This makes John Carter a true hero, capable of uniting different peoples even under the most extreme conditions. But of course, his uniqueness does not end there. Another significant force on Barsoom were the Red Martians, or humanoid Martians of Barsoom, who embodied the civilized, though politically divided side of Martian society. They became an important part of John Carter's life thanks to his encounter with Dejah Thoris, the Princess of Helium. This meeting not only changed Carter's destiny, but also made him a key figure in the power struggle on Barsoom. John Carter first met Dejah Thoris when she was captured by the Tharks. Carter decided to help her escape, and this act immediately made Dejah Thoris his ally, and their connection evolved into something more. Dejah became a source of inspiration for Carter. She introduced him to the political and cultural side of Barsoom, teaching him the arts of diplomacy and survival amidst internal conflicts. Her bravery and intelligence helped Carter understand that to save Barsoom, he needed to become not just a warrior, but a leader. John Carter unexpectedly found himself involved in the power struggle on Barsoom due to his alliance with Helium and his personal attachment to Dejah Thoris. Zodanga was Helium's eternal rival, striving for political and military dominance on Barsoom. The ruler of Zodanga wanted to force Dejah Thoris to marry him to consolidate his power and legitimize his claims to the throne. Carter was drawn into this struggle, defending the princess while trying to prevent war. Thanks to his physical abilities and strategic thinking, Carter became an indispensable ally of Helium. Despite his unfamiliarity with Martian politics, Carter quickly learned to navigate the intrigues, allowing him to unite disparate factions against a common enemy. Ultimately, John Carter changed Barsoom. Thanks to his efforts, Helium won the conflict with Zodanga, preserving its independence. Barsoom began to change under the influence of his ideas of unity, which previously seemed impossible. Dejah Thoris became his ally, companion, and a symbol of a new future for the planet. After the victory at Zodanga, John Carter brought his beloved Dejah Thoris back to her homeland, Helium, where a victory celebration took place. At this celebration, Tardos Mors, Dejah Thoris' grandfather, decided to form an alliance with the Tharks due to the bravery of Tars Tarkas. During this festival, John Carter and Dejah Thoris got married, and John Carter became the Prince of Helium in the House of Tardos Mors. After many victories and achievements, John Carter became so respected and beloved among the residents of Helium that he was offered the role of ruler of the city. John Carter's coronation was an important event for the entire planet. Firstly, it symbolized the transfer of power from the old regime to a new, more just and progressive one. Secondly, it gave Carter the opportunity to implement his ideas about unity and cooperation in practice. As the King of Helium, John Carter continued his mission to unite Barsoom. He pursued a policy of openness and cooperation, striving to strengthen ties between different cities and races. John Carter's coronation also marked a turning point in Barsoom's history. It showed that even a person from another world could become a leader and change the fate of an entire planet. Now, what makes John Carter unique? The hero's disillusionment and downfall. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, John Carter is a truly unique and profound hero who stands apart. After the happy ending, the character's story took a surprising turn. Following numerous conflicts and wars, as well as interference in Martian technologies, a catastrophe occurred on Barsoom that affected all major civilizations and cities on the planet. In the last years of his rule, Carter faced a threat related to the misuse of ancient Martian technologies. One of the atmosphere-creating machines was so powerful and unstable that its use led to irreversible consequences for Barsoom's ecosystem. As a result of using these technologies, catastrophic changes in climate and ecological and geological upheavals began to occur. Realizing that the situation had become hopeless and that continuing his rule could lead to the complete destruction of the planet, John Carter decided to use one of the ancient technologies to initiate a process of stabilization and cessation of the catastrophes. During the process of using the technology that was supposed to save Barsoom, John Carter experienced a side effect as a result of its activation. He was transported back to Earth. He was irreversibly separated from his friends, his beloved woman, Deja Thoris, and the world of Barsoom itself. Disheartened by his return to Earth, John Carter dreamed of returning to Mars to be with his beloved Deja Thoris and the family he had found. The catastrophe that Barsoom faced and his return to Earth had a profound impact on John Carter. Several significant changes occurred in his personality. Initially, Carter was an idealist, striving to create a utopia on Barsoom, to unite races and to establish peace. However, after the catastrophe, his views became more mature and cautious. He realized that the worlds in which he existed were full of both good and evil, and that ideals could not always be achieved without significant sacrifices. Returning to Earth was a moment of deep personal tragedy for Carter because he lost not only his planet, but also the chance to restore the peace he had so diligently built. He felt a deep loss, which, in return, further hardened his character, making him more determined and focused in the future. Despite returning to Earth, John Carter did not lose his connection to Barsoom. Later, in some books of the series, we saw how Carter continued to search for ways to return to Mars. In particular, this occurred through technological and magical means used by the Martians in the past. Thus, his journey between worlds became a symbol of his sacrifice and determination to restore love and order on Barsoom. Why do I consider John Carter underappreciated? There are several reasons for this. He was a precursor to modern superheroes. John Carter first appeared in 1912, long before Superman, Batman, and other genre icons. Many elements now considered staples of science fiction were first introduced in the Carter tales. Despite his contributions to the genre's development, John Carter has not received the popularity later heroes have enjoyed. Insufficient attention to the original source. Edgar Rice Burroughs' stories about John Carter, starting with A Princess of Mars, were groundbreaking for their time. However, their literary legacy has been overshadowed by more popular series such as The Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. Many iconic works have borrowed elements from the lore of Barsoom. Star Wars adopted the idea of desert worlds, intercultural conflicts, and heroes rising from humble beginnings to become leaders. James Cameron's Avatar clearly draws inspiration from the theme of a human becoming the hero of an alien planet. Carter is the archetype of the alien hero, but his contribution to the genre is rarely openly acknowledged. Challenges in adaptation. The attempt to bring John Carter to the big screen in 2012 was a commercial failure. The Disney film John Carter suffered from insufficient marketing and mispositioning. The film was presented as typical science fiction, not as an epic with a historical legacy. This unsuccessful experience reinforced the perception that John Carter is not of interest to a mass audience, which is unfair given the potential of his stories. The depth and tragedy of the character, unlike many contemporary heroes, John Carter is a complex and ambiguous figure. His biography is a story of loss, redemption, and perpetual struggle. This tragic depth makes him much more profound than many modern ideal heroes or stereotypical anti-heroes. But this complexity is often underappreciated. I'm convinced that John Carter is underappreciated not because of his flaws, but because his time has outpaced his popularity. His legacy lives on in other works, but the character himself deserves a return to the spotlight. He is not just the King of Mars, but also the father of an entire era of fantasy who may yet receive the recognition he deserves. That's all from me. If you like this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Bye.